Ahoy! The New World Open Beta is getting closer and closer and I am super excited. While New World has announced that there won't be any new content in the upcoming beta, they announced that there will be balance changes and fixes. And I want to talk a little bit about what I am hoping to see in that regard. Today I want to specifically talk about the nerfs to certain things that I like to see and the fixes that ultimately result in being nerfs. We're going to talk about the buff side and the fixes that buff things in the future, but today the focus is on the things that need to be tuned down a little bit. Now let's begin with the fixes and nerfs in no particular order. The first one I'd like to see is a nerf to the Hatchet Berserk specifically regarding the healing provided if you spec into the skill tree for it. The specific skill for this is Berserking Refresh, and if you've been part of the beta or earlier playtests, you know what I'm talking about. The reason is that this skill provides a portion of your health every 5.0 seconds. And that means the more health you have, the more health this gives you, because it seems to be a purely percentage-based value. I'm not entirely sure if it has a flat component as well, I haven't verified that, but I'm assuming it's fully percentage-based, and if you build a lot of health, you're definitely gonna heal a ton. This is especially obvious in dungeons where I, as a tank, would sometimes switch over to my hatchet just to heal up if my healer wasn't healing quickly enough. I think this skill should just provide a flat healing value so that you're encouraged to go into a more aggressive playstyle by building some more damage and not focusing too much on health in order to amp up the heal from Berserk. And since we're already on the topic of weapons that I used, Great Axe is another one that I think should definitely see multiple fixes that will inherently nerf it. In the last playtest, when charging the second attack of your attack chain, so it's a heavy attack, the damage would actually proc twice if you spec'd into a specific perk. I am, however, fairly certain that particular one will be fixed. But there are some other components. Apparently there was an issue that the Great Axe could also provide additional damage mitigation. The Great Axe also had a very easy time sticking to enemies because it was basically almost magnetic and very hard to avoid, and a bunch of other mechanics surrounding the Great Axe that I don't want to go into too much detail about, that overall definitely needed some looking at. There are also some other weapons that have effects that allow them to deal way more damage than they should be able to really, but I don't really want to talk about that in case one of them is not fixed and then everyone ends up abusing it, because that wouldn't be fun for anyone, honestly. I know these bugs have all been reported, so hopefully they are simply fixed by now. Another thing that I would definitely like to see changed is the low-level constitution scaling. I quickly showed that at the start of my strength versus constitution video where I focused on level 60, and on low levels there are massive problems with how quickly health scales up compared to damage really, because it is a flat additive value that is not really affected by anything else, whereas any attribute perks on the damaging effects are affected by a lot of other things along with it. So I hope a similar type of scaling is applied to the constitution as well, where you initially don't get that much, but then on higher levels end up getting a similar amount as you have at the moment when you're level 60. The next one is one that I think some people are very aware of and other people didn't even know about it, and that is the faction gear. So currently, or in the last beta, the faction gear was different between factions and provided different perks. And some of these perks were a fair bit better on some armors and some weapons than on others. How much better you can debate about, like some people thought that that was basically the only deciding factor in some wars. I wouldn't go that far, but I think there was definitely a significant difference between them. And I know this is something that was already on New World's radar. They posted that as one of the things in the beta forums, where they were talking about the issues that were already being looked at and addressed and whatnot. They posted Syndicate faction shop weapons contain more valuable perks than other factions. And that was true for the armor and everything as well. So that will hopefully be solved, because I think otherwise you're going to have people going to a faction just because they have slightly better gear. And that would just be annoying, especially when it's the most popular faction that already has the strongest gear. The person that gave me the screenshot did not want to be credited, but they wanted me to tell you that Covenant is the best faction. Please don't hate me for it, I'm just a messenger. Another thing that I would really like to see addressed is the current, I would call it, consumable meta. There are a bunch of different perks and effects and consumables and everything that allow you to get a lot of sustain in a fight. You begin with just health food buffs, then you have amulets that provide extra health and stuff like that, and other effects in certain skills that provide you with extra health. But then on top of that you also have the potions. And potions have an incredibly short cooldown. If I recall correctly, it's 30 seconds. Apparently health and regeneration potions have different cooldowns, and then you can also eat food while in a fight, as long as you're not getting attacked, so there are a bunch of ways in which you can quickly gain at least a little bit of health, and it doesn't take long for them to come up again. And I think, especially with how long some fights end up being, that is just a little bit annoying. I'd rather see a little bit more focus on skill in that regard, and maybe no eating during combat and just one potion once per minute or something. I don't know the exact specifics, but just something that makes it a little bit less meta. I also felt that at times certain PvE encounters especially were made easy by the fact that if all else fails, you still have potions. I'm somebody who just saves their potions most of the time because, you might need them someday, but I thought that even I was able to use them relatively frequently. Whenever anything went wrong in the dungeon and my healer wasn't healing quickly enough, I'd just pop in a potion and I'd be completely fine, and I think that's okay occasionally, but it was just a little bit too easy. There are also a bunch of damage mitigation and reduction perks that I think are very oppressive at the moment. I've told you about the Constitution bug at 150 Constitution that actually reduces the damage taken by 10%, but there are other things that allow you to get an insane amount of damage reduction. Again, I don't want to disclose too much here because it can be abused very easily otherwise, but I think that that is definitely something that needs to be looked at in general. I also have another point related to mitigation. Before we get into that, a quick reminder, if you're enjoying the video so far, please consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you get notified of other upcoming New World content. Now this point relates to armor weight. I think armor weight at the moment is just not really balanced. You can wear almost heavy armor except for like one piece, and you will still be classified as medium weight. You have the medium weight dodge and the medium weight damage benefit, and I don't think that should be the case. And for that matter, similar things applied with the lightweight class as well. So I think they should just either change how this is interpreted in general, or put heavier restriction on them with heavier armor just having significantly more weight, so it puts you higher in the weight class. Because really, you shouldn't be able to go like half to almost full tank while still having very high mobility along with it. And when it comes to mobility, I would also like to see some changes related to the dodges directly. At the moment, there are multiple ways in which you can kind of abuse the dodges, especially the dodge roll. For example, you can use the dodge roll and then sheath your weapon afterwards, and it will take away the post-roll animation. So in the part where you should be slowed down, you end up not being slowed down. Now don't get me wrong here, I am all for animation cancelling. If you do a dodge roll into an ability, if you do a dodge roll into a block that slows you down as well, that is fine to me. I just think that mechanics that technically don't really do anything in combat shouldn't be providing the same effects. Sheathing your weapon is one of them, but it's also true, for example, for weapon swapping. I think you should have to do an active combat move for it to override the post animation. Additionally, the way that stamina is handled is a little bit odd, and I don't know if it's intended, but at the moment it's very rewarding to drain your own stamina because it recovers much quicker than if you get to low stamina and then let it recover from there. Also, dodges don't really take into consideration how much stamina you currently have. That means if you have a dodge roll and that dodge roll costs 50 stamina, then you can roll twice and be out of stamina and recovers again, or you can roll once and just wait a tiny bit until you're at 51 stamina, and then you can roll twice again, because if you have just one stamina, you can do a full roll, a full dodge. Now the problem is how to solve that, because when it comes to reability, you could run into some problems. So, for example, if you make it so that the dodge roll only fully executes if you have enough stamina, if you have 50 stamina, and otherwise just cut it short, that could lead to enemy players being a little bit confused because they're trying to read your dodge and where you're going, but then you suddenly stop, so it could actually lead to some form of advantage to you. And the same would be true if you just get a shorter dodge instead when you're low stamina, like a heavy dodge if you're lightweight. Then again, I think that would just be a temporary issue because you can see the enemy's stamina bar. So after a while, people would be used to enemies with low stamina just having a short dodge and stopping in their tracks and being easy targets at that point. What could also be done is that the dodge keeps the same distance for traveling, but the immunity frames are not on the dodge anymore and you can hit them for the entire duration. Many ways to solve this really, but I hope that at least some approach is taken to fix it one way or another. The next one is very combat unrelated, and it's about town boards. I think, after having played the nerfed town boards towards the very end of the beta, that the town board XP values were still too high if the goal is to encourage players to follow the quest lines and try different things. It's just still too rewarding to spam town quests. I think there are some particular adjustments that need to be made to town boards as a whole. I will discuss that in more detail in a future video where I talk a little bit more about the buff side of things, so stay tuned for that one in the future. But I think for now I will say that especially like the low to mid tier quests tend to provide a lot of value for how easy they are to do. And then last but not least, we have the only one that definitely ranks way above everything else I have mentioned, and that is the current healing mechanics in the game, the life staff, focus and how it interacts with the life staff, and also the AoE healing from abilities like Splash of Light that actually healed way more people than they were intended to. So a whole slew of things there. I would also like to see more either anti-heal mechanics or heal prevention mechanics along with that. So either things that are applied to the people that are being healed or things that are applied to the people that are healing others, so that you can in some form interrupt or reduce that. And hopefully that will lead to a meta where the life stuff isn't that oppressive and we don't see all too many focus grade X users, focus gem grade X users along with life staff. Since many of these issues are known, and since New World announced that there will be balance changes, I'm very hopeful that we'll see significant changes to many of the things I mentioned here. Now, I still have two things to say. The first one is, if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and clicking the bell. That really helps me out. But also, I know that some of you have been waiting for the gem video, and I know that I announced a live stream for today. So, the gem video will be happening a little bit later. We had a lot of smart brains working on that and trying to figure it out, and due to some bugs and inconsistencies, it is taking a really long time. I think we're very close. At this point, we just have to verify some data again and make sure everything works out properly, but it looks pretty good so far. But I want to be 100% sure that everything is correct and that I can explain it properly as well. But don't worry, we're going to have some other good stuff in the meantime. Tomorrow we're going to talk about blocking, and we're going to have a mechanics expert on board for that. Regarding the stream, I won't be able to do that today because it got super late, but I will be doing a Q&A stream hopefully tomorrow. I'm gonna try and stream on YouTube, I think, so I will do that on my second channel, which is linked at the end, the SLOTH MMO channel. If you want to subscribe there, then you get a notification as soon as the stream goes live. But I will also announce it in tomorrow's video. My question of the day is, if you have watched or played the closed beta, then what nerfs would you specifically like to see? Other than that, thank you so much for your very intense support recently. Thank you to everyone who rewatches the videos and shares them. Thank you to everyone who joins the Discord and joins the communication there. Thanks to all the theory crafters. And thank you for watching. I hope to see you for the next one soon. SLOTH, out.